If you are someone that is actively interested or just starting to learn about the short-term rental market in Austin, watch this video. I'm gonna break it all down for you in detail, from the regulations to things that are happening to what is working, what's not working, just kind of a good guide so you know whether Austin is the market for you to invest in short-term rentals. First place we need to start, where are we right now with Austin short-term rentals, regulations, and how things are going? The first thing I wanna say, we're filming this in March 2026. Effective July 1st, 2026, all properties that are short-term rentals in the city of Austin need to have an active permit, or you won't even be able to be listed on the platforms like Airbnb and VRBO. So this is super important. That's a big thing that is happening. We do a lot of advocacy work in that area. It's important that people are educated on how you can actually operate a short-term rental in the city of Austin legally. So that's number one. Number two is you kind of have to understand like how to succeed in this market. Like, what are properties generating? Like, what do the returns look like? In general, in the city of Austin, I say a good deal is about a 12% cash on cash return at least. So if we're looking at investment deals in Austin, we want to see at least a 12% cash on cash. Now, that being said, we definitely have 20% plus cash on cash opportunities. They're just more rare. If you're looking to invest in short-term rentals in the city of Austin, it's always important to find good cash flow deals if there is ever a pullback and you need room if the property isn't going to make as much as you had hoped. And we also try to be conservative too in our estimates. Properties in Austin are going to make, depending on the property type, anywhere from like $50,000 all the way upwards to like $400,000 and even $500,000 in annual revenue on these properties. So there's opportunities to do really well. So you can have success with a studio, condo, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, not quite a 3 bedroom.
Not quite my tempo.
I'll talk about that. 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom plus. A lot of times what we do in these properties is we like to look for properties where we can host group travel. And the reason we do that is because we're competing with a lot less properties. 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, and even 4 bedrooms sometimes. There's a lot more competition. A lot more people have those size properties and they're listed on Airbnb, and you're competing with so many more properties versus when you have 4 or more bedrooms, 5, 6, 7 bedrooms, you're competing with so few people. And a lot of people come to me and they say, Blake, there's not a 7-bedroom house for sale. Well, that's not my concern because we can create that. A lot of times what we do, we will look for properties based on square footage, not just bedroom count. So our general rule of thumb, take a note on this, is 400 to 500 square feet per bedroom. Meaning if a property is 3,000 square feet, but it's a 3-bedroom, we probably have enough square feet in there where we can add up to like 6 bedrooms basically, right? Depending on the layout, maybe even 7 bedrooms. Again, just depends how things are set up in the house, but we're not always having to filter for a 5-bedroom or a 6-bedroom or a 7-bedroom. A lot of times we can create that. So we like to look for things based on square footage. The properties that are going to do really well in the city of Austin are going to be generally properties with pools or access to some type of water feature. Now, do you have to have that? Not necessarily. You don't have to have a water feature for it to be a good deal for you, but that's gonna make a huge difference in how the property will perform. A property without a pool that's doing, say, $50,000 a year in annual revenue, with a pool, we typically see about double. So if a property is doing 60K, it might do 120 with a pool, and right, 70, 140. That's about what we're seeing when properties have a pool. So it's that important. You don't always have to go and like build a pool if your property doesn't have a pool. We've been doing some cool stuff with like prefabricated products, which I think are really interesting, container pools, things like that. Generally, an in-ground pool is going to be your best way to go. We do have some properties that don't have water features and they do really well. It's just dependent on the deal. Now, I want to talk about regulations. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, by July 1st, 2026, so I don't know when you're watching this video, but by July 1st, 2026, in the city of Austin, every property has to have a permit. And if it does not have a permit, it cannot be listed on the platforms. That being said, if it's outside the city limits of Austin in what's called the ETJ or extraterritorial jurisdiction, you can actually operate that property. The city still wants you to get a permit, but you don't actually have to pay the hotel tax. And there are tons of cities around Austin that I think people discount. People discount a lot of the areas around Austin, like Round Rock, Pflugerville, Buda, Manor, like some of these suburbs that are around Austin and even out towards the Lake Travis areas, Hudson Bend, out to Spicewood. A lot of those areas can still perform very well. I typically say within about an hour radius of the city of Austin or like downtown, you can have success with the right property. You just have to know what the right property is. People come to me and they say, Blake, what kind of property should I buy? I like to start with understanding how much do you have to invest? Because if you only have, let's say, $100,000 to invest in your first short-term rental investment deal, that means you're only going to be buying around a $450,000 house-ish. You're not going to be buying in like prime downtown. But if you have more to invest, that's a whole different conversation. But you can have success at those lower price points, but you have to look further out. That's a big piece. What's working right now is still some of the stuff outside of downtown. You don't have to be dependent on just being in a specific location. I typically recommend people to be what I call location agnostic, meaning that you're like not tied to one specific part of the city. It's more about a specific property type that you're looking for and working the numbers backwards from there. Let's say you have $100,000 to invest and we want to get at least 12% cash on cash. In fact, let's say 18% cash on cash. Is that achievable? Absolutely. You just have to know what you're looking for. So if someone comes to me and they say, I have $100,000 to invest in a property, I need to maximize that. I need to get the best cash on cash return, high cash flow. I'm probably going to direct them to the suburbs. So like Round Rock, which is where the property that I'm sitting in now is located. We can find properties that are in the price range where you would need to be, that already have pools in place where you're not having to spend a bunch of money, and they're already mostly turnkey where you don't have to put all this money into remodel, and you can focus your efforts mostly on just like the furnishing and design portion to get and achieve that high cash on cash return. The markets that I would avoid. So people ask me, hey, where do I need to buy in Austin? Where should I not buy in Austin, right? The areas around Austin that I would avoid. Number one is like Leander proper. So Leander is a small suburb just outside of Austin. And while they don't have any specific restrictions in place right now, the city has just shown themselves to be very anti-STR. So I typically recommend, unless it's just a screaming deal, you walking in with like hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, avoid Leander if you can. You can go outside the state limits, but inside the state limits of Leander, I would avoid. Other areas I would avoid, some of the like tertiary markets, like Elgin. These are like small markets that are outside the city that there's no real draw for people to go there. I'll talk about some hidden markets around Austin as well. Some of the smaller markets are just not worth messing around with. Some sleeper markets that people are not aware of that you could absolutely crush in. One, Taylor, Texas, which is a small town next to the big Samsung plant. Number two would be east again, like out towards Manor. The interesting thing about that area is you can get properties with a bunch of land where you can fit really, really cool amenities. Other markets around Austin that are absolutely worth considering, Dripping Springs. Dripping Springs crushes for us. The really cool thing with Dripping Springs is it's right in between the hill country, which is like where a lot of, Texas travelers go. It's like almost like the Texas wine country. It's right in between that and like downtown Austin. So you get a very good mix and variety of guests that are looking in properties that are in Dripping Springs. Other sleeper markets, the North Austin suburbs have been very consistent with us. We've been doing short-term rentals in like Round Rock, Pflugerville, those areas for several years now. And even when the STR market dipped, interestingly enough, those markets got hit the least compared to a lot of our properties. So those are areas that I would look. Those are sleeper markets. You can still absolutely do the downtown thing, the Fredericksburg thing, like the really higher end markets. But if you're looking for markets that are more of like sleepers that are people don't realize you can absolutely still crush on, that are lower price, those are the ones that I would look into. Now, if you want to know what type of property is absolutely going to crush, regardless of how much money you have to invest, like this is like dream Austin type property, get you the best return, we're typically going to be looking in the $1 to $2 million range for properties with bigger lots. And we want to get to about 6+ bedrooms, right? And these properties are going to generate $200,000 plus in revenue. So this is a property that either has or we can fit in 6 or more bedrooms, that has or we can add a pool and the additional outdoor amenities. You make your money with the outdoor amenities in this market. I'm gonna say it again. You make your money with the outdoor amenities in this market. So make sure that you're making that a big priority whenever you're choosing your design and like what kind of property that you want to buy. I would put a lot of effort into the guest experience. So what is it that the guests are going to be doing whenever they're actually staying at my property to make sure that when they're here, they're having a good time and I can demand premium rates for it. Another thing that a lot of people need to be looking into is unique amenities. I talked about pools, and pools are important, but what else can you do to stand out? Because there's also a lot of properties with pools. You're starting to see more and more people do things like pickleball courts, sand volleyball courts. Think about unique amenities. If you want to push for top end revenue, high level properties, you have to think like, what are some amazing amenities that almost nobody else is doing? So that's what I would do. So to recap, make sure you have a permit in the city of Austin. Right now, it's pretty easy to get a permit. You just apply and they get it to you within 3 to 5 weeks typically. You need a permit. You need to focus on guest experience and be location agnostic. Be more focused on the right type of property, the right type of deal, and not necessarily has to be this one specific location. If you want to learn about some of the systems that we use to run these properties, we have another video on that I'll link here. Additionally, if you want to see deep dives, exclusive deal opportunities, and way more, join our free school account. I'll link that in the description below.